Look, I did go to school for a long time, and I'm proud of that. But, people with PhDs need to not be so proud of themselves sometimes, okay? So Mark is my name, okay? And as Nicole said, I got 2 PhDs. How many of y'all know what a post-hole digger is? That's my working PhD. And it comes in handy when you talk about landscaping, okay? So here's what I'm doing today. So I like talking about this, and in my farmer career, well, I've been in Mississippi since the early 80s. My wife and I moved to Starkville from South Louisiana. So I am a Cajun, and I do hold the state record for not being able to speak in the King's English with my hands tied behind my back for 10 minutes. Okay, so it is true we like to wave our arms, but we can talk without waving our arms, okay? Nonetheless, in the last 30 or so years, I went down to the coast, worked for the Extension Service for a number of years, and then I opened up the Pascagoula River Audubon Center in Moss Point. I'm trying to be retired, okay? But people like Nicole call and say, can you come up? Yeah, so I'm working on trying to find a way to say no to certain people. Not her yet, although it's 2 strikes. Nonetheless, this is a topic we've been promoting for a long time, landscaping with natives. Forget the hummingbirds for a minute, okay? Because I'm a big promoter of native landscapes and native plants. How many of y'all have native plants in New York? Awesome, speaking to the choir. How many of y'all feed hummingbirds? How many of y'all feed hummingbirds with native plants? Okay, got the right people, right? Sure, feeders are fine. They like it all, right? Right. And I'm not going to say ditch the feeder, okay? But native or natural sugar water is way better, okay, than the sugar water we feed them. Okay, so that's the topic here. But I'm trying to sneak in my theme of landscaping with natives using the most iconic bird that people want to see in their yard, hummingbirds. Come on, who doesn't like a hummingbird, right? I like a lot of birds, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other plants that don't directly support hummingbirds. But the idea is, let's talk about native landscaping and trying to attract the most iconic bird that most people want to see, okay? So, again, I think I'm speaking to the right crowd. But, and there's a lot of other people in the state of Mississippi doing this. My good friend Bob Brusiak, Professor Emeritus from Mississippi State University in the Landscape Architecture Department. He was with Extension Service as well. He was at Crosby Arboretum many years ago. Robert Poore, you may know that name. He does a lot of wonderful nature-based ecological restorations and promoting native plants. So there's a bunch of us, but we can't not stop talking about this. So I'm going to bless y'all as a good Catholic. Y'all are now ambassadors. You're already doing it, okay? So go tell your neighbors, right? We need to talk more about this. But that's the theme for today. Let's see, electronics. There we go. So what's the concept? It's not complicated. None of this is complicated, okay? How can we make and provide hummingbirds with plants that directly feed or help feed? It's 2 different things. Okay, when you think of hummingbirds and you talk about hummingbird plants, what do you think about? What are the plants that feed hummers? Okay, but what is it they go for the Buckeye for? They go to your feeder for what? Nectar. Right, yep, they sure do. Nectar producing plants, right? And it could be Buckeye, it can be coral honeysuckle. I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of plants that you may already use or some that you may want to use. I'm also going to talk about the seasonality and the connection between these plants and these birds. These birds are main pollinators of a lot of these plants. But it turns out they don't need a lot of nectar. Okay? Think about it as the energy drink. God, they got a heck of a metabolism. I mean, what is it? A couple hundred beats per second, crazy minute. It's crazy. They can fly 30 to 40, 50 miles an hour. When they travel across the Gulf of Mexico, that trip is 500 miles from Ocean Springs, where I live, to Yucatan Peninsula. Non-stop. They need a lot of energy. But it's not all about the nectar. They're insectivores. They feed on insects. That's what they feed on. What do they eat? Insects and spiders. And most of our backyard birds eat that. Okay, now, we got cardinals and seed eaters, doves and other birds that feed on seed, but most of our backyard birds, including hummers, feed themselves and their babies with insects and spiders. If you're familiar, that's been maybe 20 years ago, a fellow entomologist, Doug Tallamy, wrote a book, Bringing Nature Home. And his whole thing was based on a single chart of plants, trees and shrubs in the eastern U.S. and the number of caterpillars that you can find on them. The connection was that most of the birds breeding in your yard are feeding their babies caterpillars and spiders, soft-bodied insects. I don't know if you've ever watched a pair. I've got Carolina wrens in my yard. Oh, Lord, they get my stuff all the time. I went to get a pot that I was going to propagate some stuff in, and there he is staring at me, you know. And they feed their babies. They go from egg that hatches, and they have little babies flying out 12 to 14 days later. Hummingbird's not going to be able to get that bird to grow that fast with nectar, I promise you. Okay? But Tallamy's whole theme was those native trees support more species of caterpillars, butterflies, moths, than non-native trees. At the top of the list were oaks as a group. Something like 500 different types of caterpillars in oaks overall. At the bottom of the list was my least favorite plant of all, crepe myrtle 3. I don't know what it is about crepe myrtle here. If you like crepe myrtle, great. I know that man doesn't. He didn't like crepe myrtle. Okay? He knows how to, yeah, I mean, we're going to talk later. Point is, that's the theme, right? Same thing with hummingbirds. They're feeding they're feeding themselves and their babies this. And they fly catch. Have you ever seen, a lot of birds fly catch. They'll find a favorite perch, whether they're trying to defend your feeder out there. But if you watch them, when they're not fighting over a feeder, they'll go up to the little perch, and then they'll fly out and seemingly just fly out and flutter for a moment and fly back. What you've missed is that. They're feeding on insects. Tiny ones, okay, little ones. Spiders too. There are lots of, and again, they've been reported actually probing on tree trunks, on branches, flying out and catching them out of the air. There was a study done a couple of years ago. I think this was in West Texas, if I recall. And this couple went out and they found a nest, which is a tough thing to do. That nest is about that big. Hard to find. But they found a nest. And they followed those birds religiously every day for about 2 or 3 weeks. This was in early summer, late spring. No obvious flowering plants anywhere around. So their conclusion was they fed themselves and their babies on insects and spiders on arthropods for a whopping 2 weeks. So that's one of the things we don't realize about hummingbirds. They're insectivores. Okay, that's what they do. So when I had that slide up earlier, we're going to talk about the nectar plants that are supporting them surely right here. Okay, because it's important. Think of that as the energy drink. In the South, that would be sweet tea. Okay? That's what they need to fuel their activity. But that's what they're after. And folks, look, as an entomologist, I can tell you, for every insect you can see without a magnifying glass, there's hundreds of tiny ones. Hundreds. I mean, we see them flitting around our trash or in our compost bin, or sometimes, you know, my compost, my wife's like, okay, too many flies around your compost pot, put it outside. Okay? We see them sometimes. A lot of them out there. So there's plenty of food for them to eat. That's what they're after. And that hummingbird just sitting on that perch waiting to go after all of this stuff. Okay, so that's what they're doing. Where do those insects come from? They're not just living in the void. They're on the other native plants in your yard. Okay? These are some of my go-to plants, by the way. And I'm going to divert a little bit by telling you, there's another presentation I do all the time. This comes right out of that one. Just promoting native plants in general. These are my 3 go-to shrubs. If somebody asks me, what kind of shrubs should I put in my yard to support birds and wildlife? Yaupon holly, wax myrtle, beautyberry. Right there. They're readily available now, and they feed birds. Now, yaupon and wax myrtle are dioecious plants, fancy name for two dioecious means houses. Y'all be familiar with things like a mulberry or persimmon. You got a female persimmon tree, and you need to have a male persimmon tree to pollinate. Okay, well, same thing with yaupon and wax myrtle. And in the case of yaupon, I tend to see those berries are ripe late fall. Birds don't mess with them until it chills down. You know how sometimes citrus needs to chill a little bit to get a little sweet? I think that's something what's going on with that. But that wax myrtle, I get yellow rumps, affectionately known in Mississippi, or butterbutts. Pretty little warbler. Big old bright yellow spot. Right? Beautiful birds. They come down, they are One of the most successful birds in North America. Live in Canada, northern Canada, mind you. Come down here by the millions and spend the winter with us. And they eat insects, but they like to eat, what's in that berry for them? It's that wax, it's the fat. Same thing in all these other berries. It's the fat. And when it gets chilly, that's what they eat. And they will strip that wax myrtle tree. They got a little cold in December of last year, and those berries were gone within 2 days. Gone. Okay, so, but back to the hummingbirds. It's the insects that are on these plants that do that. That beautyberry, it's fall when those berries are ready. And that's another one. Easy to propagate, really hard not to propagate. Okay? But birds will guard that. We're talking about guarding hummingbirds. I have a beautiful picture window last fall, looking out, and there's my beautyberry bushes. I have several of them. And there's a thrasher parked right in the middle of it. And he reaches over there and grabs one, and he looks around like, okay, you see this is mine? I got tired of watching him after 2 hours. Okay? But important food for our wildlife. But being back to hummingbirds, why do we need them? We need them for this. Let me back up. Okay? Sweet tea. Oh, I'm sorry. Where's my sweet tea? Sweet tea, meat and potatoes. Sweet tea, meat and potatoes. Get the idea? Okay. So, again, but we're going to focus largely on nectar plants. But I'm going to pause for a minute. How many of y'all know we have more than one hummingbird in Mississippi? Okay, how many? It's a good question. I had to ask that. Several, okay? Turns out, and that one on the lower left is the most common winter hummer. This is the Rufous hummer. It's a little bigger than our ruby-throated, okay? Our ruby-throated is the eastern U.S. It migrates. They're coming back from Costa Rica and that part of the continent down there. They're coming back. They go all the way into Canada and the entire eastern U.S. Okay, and they turn back around, they come on out. They typically are here from, I call it the Ides of March, through about the Ides of November, if there's such a thing. The rest of the year, they're gone. But we get a lot of hummers that come in from the west, like Rufous. It's our most common winter hummer. That's just one poster. This is for the United States and Canada. 19 birds on that species, I should say. 19. Including the one in the upper center, which is our ruby throat. Some sources, and some of these are right on the edge of Mexico, and they may be around. So the number is somewhere between 15 to 19 species in the United States. In Mississippi, and if there's anybody here from the Mississippi Ornithological Society that can correct me, I think the state list is 12. 12 birds, hummingbirds recorded from Mississippi. I work on the coast. The coast list is 10. And people get all excited. But you're not going to see the 9 of those 10 on the coast until November. Okay? And it includes a lot of cool birds. Just an example, back to the Rufous. That thing has a very similar migratory pattern to our ruby throats, except on the west coast. So they breed all the way into Canada, come all the way on the west coast. They overwinter in Mexico and the northern Gulf Coast. But look at that distribution and sightings map on the right. They go all the way to New England in the wintertime. I mean, they're very, very common. 1, 2 at a time. Okay, there was a wonderful couple years ago did a lot of work on hummingbirds. Martha and Bob Sargent, sweet people from northern Alabama. They began capturing and banding birds for years and years and years, okay? And there was a record of a Rufous in Mobile, Alabama, in this lady's yard, 9 years running. They banded it, and that bird came back 9 years running. Okay, so they're very habitual. So are your ruby throats, don't you? Right? If you don't pull out that feeder on the coast, it's the Ides of March. That bird will come up to that window and look at you. So where's my feeder? Okay, they do that in the fall too. Okay, my wife and I, after Katrina, sitting in our house, it's September, sitting on our porch. We've got a big wraparound porch, just trying to catch our breath and clean the house out. And there was a red something or other on the railing, and this hummer flew up right there. And he looked at that red thing, and he looked at me, and he said, "Hey, I'm here. Where's my stuff?" I jumped up. I remember the feeder was in the yard. Mary went in, got the sugar off the cabinet, and we fed that bird. Okay? Well, these Rufuses do the same thing. Okay? So again, very habitual. The other couple of black chin is another very common one. I get them in Ocean Springs, Calliope. The problem with them is not that they don't come or that you have them in your yard, but they're very difficult to identify in the winter. Birds molt twice a year. So females are difficult to tell apart, but the fact that you have one is kind of cool. So in the wintertime, we do get a lot of winter hummers. Again, I paused a little bit to promote this. Remember I told you I'm trying to sneak in native landscaping by using birds. Okay? This is why using native plants is so much easier. I mean, I hate mowing lawns. I don't have a lawn, I live in the woods. Okay? I really don't need to do any using herbicides. I don't need to use pesticides because I don't grow non-native plants. Native plants are naturally adapted. Okay? I live on the coast, folks. It is sandy, loam soil. I'm a Cajun. I love eating okra. I can't grow okra on the coast because the soil is terrible. I can grow Yaupon holly and wax myrtle and everything else, though, because they're naturally adapted to that kind of environment. No need any of that, right? And, of course, back to our theme, they're naturally used by wildlife of all kinds. And, again, we're going to focus largely on this. The pollinated plants that depend, in many cases, I won't say exclusively, but largely on hummingbirds, okay, to pollinate. Hummingbirds are great pollinators. So here's the question. Is red best? When you buy a hummingbird feed, it's red, right? I was selling years ago Oreo feeders that were orange. And I'm thinking, oh, man, what a waste of money. Those Oreos come to my red feeders, no problem. Okay? Well, it turns out, they're just looking for nectar. I'm going to show you some blue plants and some white plants. If they get nectar in the plant, they're going to come get it. Okay? Surely a lot of our plants that are pollinated by hummingbirds are red. The flowers are, but it's not necessary. Okay? So there's a lot of plants that you may already have in your yard. Just keep your eyes open. They're going to come to this. So we're going to start with shrubs. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about some of the, again, nectar-supporting plants, shrubs, vines, and so on and so forth. These are great plants right here, okay? I have two natives. I have a non-native in the middle. I include it because it's not invasive, for one. You plant it, it stays where it is. And boy, does it support hummers throughout the year. At least in the southern part of the state, it's more or less evergreen. Even with the, what was that, we got that big snow. Was that last year? I'm listening to News and Track. Oh, man, we had 8 inches of snow in Ocean Springs. And it did knock back a number of them, but they came right back. So I do promote that one as an exception, okay, because it's a really good hummingbird plant. That is my absolute favorite, coral bean. Absolute favorite, okay? And I brought a coral bean for the museum, and I think one from somebody right here, okay? It's called coral bean because of the beans, okay? I'll pass it around. If you want some, you can have some, all right? It's a bean, it's a legume. And now that one I picked, and I use them, or try to promote and use them for dried arrangements. The beans usually split all the way open, and you have these beautiful coral-colored beans alternating on the bean pod. They're beautiful. I'm a Cajun. In Cajun country, that's called Mamou. Look up coral bean, and what it's going to say, Mamou. Okay. Mamou, Louisiana, is the northern part of Cajundom. Okay, just north of I-10, south central Louisiana. Okay. Every self-respecting Cajun had a Mamou plant in their yard, because the Choctaw Indians taught us how to use it. Now, there's a lot of reasons I'm accused of being a crazy Cajun, and some of it may be the fact that I drink Mamou tea. So you take the leaves, and you dry them like you would anything else, okay? It's got a triploid compound leaf, and you make a tea with 3 leaflets, not 2, not 1, 3, okay? Wards off a cold. If you really got a cold, fell to your chest, you got that one bean, and you cracked it in a cup of tea. My mother made sure I always had coral beans. I have the last little bottle of coral beans she saved for me, okay? If you really got sick, someone went out and dug. It's got a huge tuber, a mature plant's got this huge tuber in the ground, very well adopted. And I don't know the recipe. I was asking my brother a while back, do you know the recipe, Gerald? No, I just know it works. Now, here's the thing. For years, again, it's pollinated by hummingbirds. I tried to find herbalists that would tell me that that wasn't poison. Every book I ever saw had a skull and crossbones on that plant and said, don't do it. What? Choctaw Indians. And you look at the old home sites. Even in Biloxi, you see the old home sites, and there's a big Mamou tree in the yard, a bush. Every Cajun had them, at least in my generation and before. Well, finally, there's a cultural center in Lafayette, Cajun Cultural Center, and they published a book last year on native plants of Louisiana, and on the cover is Mamou. And it says, of course, the Choctaw Indians taught us how to use it. So God bless them. Now I have a book that says I can drink Mamou tea, okay? But it's a great, look at those petals. I mean, the flowers are great. And every year, I see hummers come in my yard and pollinate that and create beans that I turn around and plant, okay? Red Buckeye is another great one. Both of those plants actually get farther north. And what's neat about both of those is that the blooming progresses with the birds as they're coming through. And that just makes sense. Buckeye is about finished right now on the coast. It's just starting up here. You get into Tennessee and further north, it's going to progress with the birds. Okay, so there's a link between these birds and many of these plants. Vines are great. Go-to honeysuckle. This is our native honeysuckle, coral colored because of the blossom. Right? It is awesome. Trumpet creeper. Some people, that takes over. It does, but you know what? How many of y'all know how to prune plants? Hey, you know what? It's a good native. You whack it down, it's going to come back. Okay? Prune it. Put it on a trellis. Put it on your fence. Don't be afraid of them, right? Crossvine, that one is the first vine to bloom in the spring. Okay, and I'm going to elaborate a little bit. All three of these, though, make great native plants in your yard, on a fence. Put them where you can actually see the birds when they come to visit them. Okay, and they're gorgeous. They're good natives. They last a long time. Salvias, oh Lord, you can't go wrong with salvia. Okay, right now the coast is jammed up with laurel leaf sage along the roadsides. Beautiful. That's not red. Not red at all. A friend of mine just posted yesterday, hummingbird feeding on laurel leaf sage. Okay, scarlet sage, Texas sage, blood sage, and in the fall, that one, azure sage. Oh my goodness, that's a beautiful blue. There's a recessive. It has a dominant recessive genes. There's a white version of it. And I've seen hummingbirds fight over that in the fall. Any kind of salvia, okay, will work to attract hummingbirds. Turk's cap lily, great one, okay. Butterflies love that too. So it's not just about hummingbirds. And cardinal flower, we were talking a bit earlier with Nicole about cardinal flower. At times in the coast, of course we're on the coast, brackish marshes, and we don't know exactly what triggers it, but about every 8 to 10 years, it's happened 4 times in my 30-something years on the coast. In September, brackish marshes, I work in marshes, and you drive over a bridge and you look and it's just red with cardinal flower. We don't know what stimulates the seed bank or what does it, but when it happens, the Audubon Society breaks out their scopes. As my favorite trail is Fontainebleau Trail, and there's a little bluff up there, and we stick out there, and all you see is red. You don't even see the juncus and the other marsh plants. It's all red. And there are hundreds of hummers and twice as many butterflies out there. Okay, so again, pollinating, and that's in the fall when they're moving out. So there you go. So here's the key, though. Back to this. These plants and these birds and other pollinators are linked. They've evolved together. Okay, and there's a sequence of when the hummers show up and when these things are blooming. Okay, and that's what I want to talk about here. It starts. Again, hummers are here. Let me back up. Ruby-throated hummers are here from about mid-March on the coast. Y'all getting them now. What is it today, the 6th of April? You're getting your first one. You may have had them for a while. Okay, and that's the first ones. They got to fly all the way to Canada, some of these buggers. Okay, there's a lot of birds that have to come back into this country, okay, into North America. Takes a while. But guess what meets them? I can tell you, pretty much mid-March, if I'm out and about, I'm going to hear those hummers at the tops of the trees feeding on crossvine. Crossvine, not very aggressive, gets up in the top of the trees, and in the early spring, where's the heat, where's the sun, and they bloom, tops of the trees. I want to get them down where I can see them, and every once in a while somebody has them on a fence. But that's what they're feeding on when they take that return trip back across the Gulf. They're feeding on crossvine. They're also feeding on red buckeye. It starts to bloom in mid-March. It's just finishing back home on the coast right now. Starting up here. Catching that first wave of birds coming through. There are other things that pollinate them too, surely. But hummers are there. And remember, they just took a big long trip. They're tired, exhausted. They need some sweet tea. That's their sweet tea. That's what they're looking for. And salvia. Oh my God, the roadsides right now are just absolutely gorgeous blue. Okay, so and that's just a number of them right there. A little later in the year, that's when my buddy Carl Bean, Mamou, comes in. It doesn't really start, the flower heads are this tall. It dives to the ground usually. They're that tall. I can see the little red buds coming up. And it's going to look like that toward the end of this month. Okay, and they're beautiful. They're gorgeous. And that's when they get pollinated. Along with, what do I have in here? Scarlet sage starts about now, a little later, and it'll bloom through the summer. It's hard to kill back scarlet sage. And then if you're into some other northern part of the state, not so much the coast, red columbine, and there's several others that you can go, good natives, you like them, put them out there, okay? And if you're interested in some of the lists, Extension Service has lists, just Google hummingbird plants of Mississippi or hummingbird plants of the southeast, and my goodness, of course, a lot of these are promoted to sell, fine, but they're looking for nectar, remember, okay? Plant them, good natives, that's what we want. A little later, okay, the summertime, now we're getting Cardinal honeysuckle. Actually, it's starting to bloom right now too, okay, and it'll bloom all summer long. And we do get, that's the one, and some of these are the ones that feed these hummers in the summertime when they're breeding, okay? They do breed across the entire coast and up into Mississippi. We normally tell people, how many of y'all leave a feeder in the summertime? A couple, maybe. It's hot. They're not coming to your feeder. It's hot, right? They're going to find whatever flowers are blooming out there. They're going to get that little bit of nectar if they need it, and they're going to feed themselves on insects, okay? But I have a friend, and I have coral honeysuckle at his friend's house, and I'm out there, and it is July. And I'm reaching up to catch some berries that had, because they bloom early, or they had flowers. And that hummer, I could feel the wind go by my ear. And he turned around, he looked at me like, hey, these are my flowers. What are you doing? I was a breeding hummer, I promise you. Okay? So a lot of these are helping give that little boost, that little sweet tea to them in the summertime. Trumpet creeper, another one, blooms all summer long. And some of these others, jewelweed, gorgeous plant. I think you'll have jewelweed here. Okay, so again, these are summer, and if they need the nectar, guess what? These plants are providing the nectar for them. But they're going to eat mostly insects. That's what fuels them. And in the fall, we start to get things like Turk's cap will start in midsummer and into the fall. That azalea I was telling you about, that gorgeous blue color, white sometimes, and that cardinal flower, September. Okay? Guess what? That's when they're flying south. And they're going to come, and they're going to sit down on those plants, but they're also going to eat a lot of insects. If you remember, I was telling you about the sergeants, when they would capture these things and look at it, they would blow. If you ever seen anybody do any assessment of birds when they trap them or misnet them, they'll catch them and they'll blow the feathers away just to look under the skin, and they're looking for that yellow fat layer. Well, that fat's not coming from nectar, folks. It's coming from the insects they're eating. They got to take a 500 mile. How many? Can y'all flap your arms for 10 hours straight? I didn't think so. They do. 50 miles an hour, 500 miles. It's easy math. They don't do it on nectar alone. The nectar helps, certainly, okay? But nonetheless, again, remember what that is. So that's the connection between these hummers and these native plants on the nectar side. The other plants I could talk about for an hour are the other plants that support all the insects that support these birds. But here's some of the other things you can do to help. Again, any native plant you put out there is going to help them in one way, shape, or another, okay? Whether it's the nectar flowers on plants or it's the tiny insects that they're feeding on and spiders. So that's important. And set aside patches of other native plants. I'm a big promoter of no mow zones. How many of y'all have a no mow zone? Ah, man, y'all are my heroes, okay? I cut enough lawns in my youth for the rest of my life, okay? I get in trouble with this, okay? This is my mother's favorite all-time plant. This is fall. And that plant right there is a pollinator magnet. But lots of other birds in there. In the wintertime, sparrows and all kinds of other things, the pollinators themselves. A lot of our native bees live in the ground and overwinter in the ground and nest in the ground. So you're leaving habitat for all manner of pollinators and birds and other animals in there. You cut it way late in the winter, knock it down. Keep the shrubs out, okay? I tell the story all the time because, of course, my wife and I have 4 children, and when they were younger, we were renting homes, various places, and I inevitably got a call before Easter Because around here, all these plants come up in your yard, right? In Easter, before Easter. It's warm in February. You're going to cut your grass? It's like, it's not Easter. What's about Easter? I got little kids. Where am I going to hide the Easter eggs? I got to have a lawn to hide the Easter eggs. It worked for me every year. Okay, I could delay mowing, but guess what I was doing? I was providing habitat. Okay, it could be a corner of your yard. Okay, it could be part of a park. I love my friend Bob Ruziak this year. He got the city of Starkville to do a No Mow March. So, good for him, right? Turns out there's a I think it's No Mow May across the eastern U.S. I can't remember the organization that promotes that because we tend to bloom earlier down here. The Europeans always beat us to it. The UK's had it for a number of years. No Mow whatever. And it's a chance to do what Lady Bird Johnson did in Texas, really. Okay, let the roadside flowers grow. Okay, so again, that's a great way to help these pollinators and other wildlife there. Do that. Okay, and again, a couple other things you can do. What did I say? They eat little insects. If you compost it all, instead of burying that stuff, put that old fruit, put it on the edge of your deck or what have you, and watch the fun. Okay, little fruit flies and all kinds of things will come in there. Another thing is, if you insist on using pesticides to keep critters off your plants, just be judicious around plants, particularly nectar plants, because the pesticide gets translated into a plant, into the nectar, and that can hurt your bird. Okay? You know what? It's okay. It's okay to use sugar water. All right? It's not a problem, especially for the winter hummers. That bird right there has been in my baby sister's. I've got 5 sisters. And my baby sister has had that hummer in her yard about 6 years now. It's a Rufous. Comes every year. Okay? And you don't have to change those feeders as much in the wintertime, but it comes back. Okay? Nothing wrong with feeding them that. And remember, though, the one mistake people make about sugar water, don't buy that red stuff at the store. You got everything you need in the house. Table sugar, water. Nothing else. Don't try stevia. For goodness sakes, don't put honey. They can't do it. They can't deal with it. Sugar. Table sugar and water. And it works. It works obviously very well, right? But remember, the natural nectars are far better for them than that sugar water. They're going to drink it all day long, but the more native plants you put, whether it's nectar plants or others in your yard, the better off that you're feeding these hummingbirds. That's it. I didn't say it was complicated. Yes, sir.
What about lupin?
I'm sorry, what?
Lupin.
Lupin's good. That's a beautiful little blue flower. Lupin's awesome. We have them on the coast. You probably have them up here. Again, blue. It's a beautiful blue flower. They're after nectar. Okay? So this is a short list of plants. The other challenge we have is, and I had some of the conversation, is we had more nurseries are starting to carry them. But you have to ask, and here's the one thing I'll tell you. If they say, oh yeah, I got a native, blah, 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 blah. So, are you sure it's a native? Native to where? Okay? I can't tell you how many. I planted some trees last week at Audubon Center, and I wanted some Grancy graybeard. They called over there, you got native? Yeah, no problem. The Chinese plant showed up. Okay, so you got to insist. Milkweed, don't get me started about milkweed. It needs to be native milkweed. Yes, sir.
So I have a produce garden in my backyard right now. Will that actually help hummingbirds or will it harm them?
Wait, say it again. What was it?
I have a vegetable garden in my backyard.
Yeah.
Will it help them?
No. Yeah, well, any insects that are in, they may not come to the blossoms necessarily, but those gardens are not going to mess with them. Yeah, not a problem. Not a conflict. Yeah.
How do you propagate the beautyberry?
Throw the seeds on the ground and get out of the way. Just let them go, man. I've got babies under my boob. Oh, man, they're not hard. Some plants are, I will tell you this. So coral bean, I had to learn this years ago. My favorite, Mamou. I would throw these, they're rock hard beans. I'd throw them in the bucket and wait. And I counted them, being a scientist, I counted them one year. It's like, man, only half came up. Not even that. Huh. So I planted them, I just put it aside. Next spring, there's more coming up. So there's a delay. Okay, that's common in a lot of things. But I learned a trick. You take a bean, take a sharp knife or a knife, and you nip that end of that thing, and that water, and I get 99% of them come up. Okay, so, but some seeds come, like beautyberry, they'll come right up. They become a weed sometimes. Coral honeysuckle we're talking about, that thing, take the berries off, put it in a pot, grows. Okay, or take the vine, put it on the ground, grow. Some are easier, but again, back to the nurseries, insist, I want to see the tag that has a name on it. Okay?
What nurseries, I mean, some of the nurseries don't have any. Yet wet nurseries around here have names.
Well, Nicole may be better. I know the Clinton Nature Center has a big plant sale. And then, what was the other one you were talking about?
And coming up, actually, at Nature Fest this Saturday, Camp Creek Natives from
Okay.
New Albany will be here at the museum selling native plants.
Yeah.
That includes some, I think, swamp milkweed, and
There you go.
and I believe they're bringing some Buckeye. They're bringing a variety of things. And there's a gentleman who's here today.
in the back.
There you are. Who brought some Buckeyes to share. I think if anyone is very interested in that, see the nice man in the green shirt at the end. But when it comes to like finding actual local places for it, it is very hard. Green Oak Nursery has done a little bit locally with that, but they don't always insist on native cultivars, so you have to like look at that.
They do that all the time, yeah.
And,
they do that all the time.
So that's like the Clinton Nature Center on their sale. They have a spring sale and a fall sale, so you can look for that. This Saturday also at the High Street Farmers Market is also having a native plant low-key festival. So they'll be having stuff. I don't know if it's like anything for sale, but it's informative. And we do have a native plant society here. I think
We do.
a few folks here are members, and they have listed on their website places
Yes.
that are reliable that you can go to for
And
that.
they have a meeting this Saturday
Yeah.
at Roosevelt Station.
They're good. Yes, sir.
If y'all want to write this down, so the Metro Master Gardeners, this Saturday, April 25th, or Saturday, April 25th, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon at, I think it's Minell Gardens. So they're going to have native and naturalized heirloom plants for sale.
There you go.
So April 25th.
25th, that's like
Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12.
2 weeks from this Saturday,
Yeah.
sounds like.
Yep.
Yeah. So look around. I mean, Google it, but
Yeah.
again, insist. Oh, go this side. We planted pink azaleas a couple weeks ago, and the nursery said, "Oh, you got pinks? Well, we didn't. They're kind of a light pink, blah blah." Oh God, they're horticultural varieties. Okay, I want to know that this is the pink azalea. Okay, so I had to go to another nursery. So you have to be diligent about making sure that you're getting what you want. God bless their hearts. The horticulturist of the world, and if there's horticulturists, God bless you. Bless you. As we say in the South, bless your heart. Okay, they must mess with something. Why? Okay, native plants are fine. So just insist on milkweed is a problem.
It is a problem.
You got to get the aquatic one is more. I don't know why they do this, but I had a hard time last year on a Monarch way station finding tuberosa, which is the roadside orange. I had to go to Tennessee to get them. I mean, I don't know why nobody seems to
It's
have a
just
market for
It's
it.
just not cultivated locally. We have
not.
16 native species of
Yeah,
milkweed
right.
here in Mississippi,
Right.
but like you just can't get it in any place. Like the only like 100% reliable place I know is Camp Creek.
There you go.
And even then it's, I think they have like one right now that's available.
The aquatic one is great. It's white. It's pretty. But there's an orange one, aquatic one too. But I don't know why they propagate that one. They say, oh yeah, you can go it in your yard. You gotta water the heck out of it. Okay. I mean, it'll tolerate. It grows in swamps. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. But some plants, I don't know why, but insist on that Mexican stuff that they sell from places, and they'll claim it's native. It's not native to the U.S. And again, the short story of that is they continue to bloom, or they don't die back in the fall, and the monarchs delay moving, and that's the problem with milkweed. So. Insist on natives. I'm sorry, yes, sir.
The other thing I was going to say is in the fall, I've got an acre, I'll plant the entire acre in crimson clover. And we do not cut it till after it all goes to seed.
Yeah.
And we'll have hummingbirds
Sure.
come in as well as a ton of bees.
Sure. Good plan.
So-
Yeah, and it adds nitrogen to the soil too. Yes, ma'am.
Follow-up question. I don't know if on the coast you're dealing with buffalo now. So far, we haven't been dealing with them here in Jackson yet, and I don't know if it's do the hummers eat buffalo black flies.
No,
Okay, I was trying to find a purpose
too
in
big.
their life.
I wish, good luck.
They're tiny. The black flies we get.
Yeah, they are. They might, I won't say complete, but you know, they tend to get little bitty bugs, you know.
I mean, they're like, they're not much more than like
They
5
might,
mils.
they might.
Okay.
But don't plan on being bug, don't plan on grabbing a couple. You know, used to, there was a story by a fella, he got a little thread and he would try to attach a dragonfly and walk around, because on the coast, them yellow flies will eat you alive come May and June, and man, those things are vicious to eat, the yellow flies. But don't depend on your hummingbirds eating too many of them, if they do.
My children would have found purpose for their life had that been.
Yeah, I'm sure. They eat mosquitoes, you know, but yeah.
Are ants a problem in nectar feeders, since they are problematic?
Well, they bother the birds. I mean, they get past them, but you know, when she's talking about ants, you just have to clean them out regularly. And sometimes, you know, there's these little ant guards that you can get, and some of them are built in, or bee guards too. When we used to do the big Hummingbird Festival at the Strawberry Plains Audubon Center, and oh my God, the bees, when you have 20 or 30 feeders out, the bees show up, right? And they had to really wash them every hour. And I mean wash them to get the scent off of them, okay? So if you got ants, take it down, wash it, try to find out where they are, move it. Because sometimes they establish a trail to that thing. And you put it back where you got it, and guess what? You can have ants again. So they bother the birds. So it's just better just to kind of not deal with it if you can. Yeah. Okay. They're ready to go out and be ambassadors for this, right?
Cleaning your feeders, use vinegar or?
Just hot water. Hot water. Soap, if you can put them away for a while, but you really got to rinse them really well to get all that soap out of there. You can use a little vinegar, but rinse them. Rinse them really well. Really, when you're trying to really sterilize them, a little Clorox, a little bit, but then rinse the heck out of them, soak them, because you don't want that as well. You know, that gets rid of the mold, mostly, but you're just trying to get the scent off with just hot water and rinse it. Yeah. Yep, yes ma'am.
I found that the Walmart, like the hexagonal feeders, there's a little rim around the top. If you just fill that with water,
That's, yeah.
it prevents ants.
A built-in bee guard, ant guard. Yeah, they come.
I didn't know that for years.
Yeah, it's like, what's that thing in the middle? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Man, thank y'all for coming. Appreciate it.